Canadian soldiers are entering a quagmire, a conflict even more complex than Afghanistan. They've been practicing for months to rapidly retrieve the injured and ferry international peacekeepers by air. But it's hard to prepare for what comes next. A nation struggling with a peace deal that never took hold, where even those welcoming us in are invested in keeping up the fight.
There's no clear good guys or bad guys.
Terrorism researcher Aisha Ahmed travels regularly to Mali.
One of the biggest problems we have isn't necessarily that we have really tough rivals, but that we have really bad allies.
Those allies, the ones who agreed to peace, not only keep fighting, but are connected to corruption and, says Professor Ahmed, the drug trade.
Those groups are implicated in cocaine trafficking, in illicit business, and have become financially incentivized to maintain a status quo when they regularly fight against each other for control over these turfs.
That difficult dynamic filters back here to UN headquarters in New York. They know of the challenges, and one of those who helped create the mission warns of the dangers.
You should expect hostile force, you should expect attacks on convoys, you should expect IED threats, etc.
Arthur Boutelis is still involved in the peace effort. And he points out most of the peacekeepers aren't as well equipped as the Canadians. So Ottawa's under pressure to give more.
If Canada were contributing, in addition to the helicopter unit, some infantry, for instance, that would very much be welcome, because again, I think that experience would be relevant. Right now, it's not the case. Maybe, once Canada get a sense of the realities on the ground, having the helicopter unit, maybe the country would then consider expanding its contribution.
Sending 6 helicopters was actually just a starting point for the planners here at the United Nations. They have asked Canada for a lot more. Send troops, send police, send more money, increase the amount of time that you're there. But the Canadians, who heralded a return to the world stage under the Trudeau government, have so far been reluctant.
Any government needs to take extremely seriously the responsibility involved in sending Canadian troops potentially into harm's way around the world.
The feds may well have looked at Mali and realized how much of a mess it has become. But as the Trudeau government lobbies for a seat on the UN Security Council, any contribution to peacekeeping looks good. The deployment all part of a larger political game. Whether it can achieve peace, that's another story.
Peacekeepers are not there to impose peace or to force peace on the national actors. It is for the national actors to achieve peace.
Professor Ahmed agrees, but isn't convinced the warring groups even want peace.
The problem with this particular mission is that the intervention itself is not leading to that outcome. And so for that reason, I'm deeply concerned that our men and women in uniform would be put into a situation where they're potentially being handed an unwinnable war.
Their deployment has now begun. By August, they'll be fully operational. David Common, CBC News.
By the way, David has a full-length interview with Aisha Ahmed, the researcher you saw in his piece. You can see it on cbc.ca/The National. Now, Canada's peacekeeping contribution in Mali is new, but this country has been contributing there in other ways for years. In humanitarian and development aid, Canada has given about $1 billion to Mali over the past decade, and the country has long been a focus for other international donors as well. Over the past 50 years, Western countries have given an estimated $100 billion. To experts, that suggests the UN is in this for the long haul.
Hopefully, over a period of a decade, the mission will be able to decrease in size. But I foresee that there will need to be a UN presence there over the coming election and into subsequent elections to make sure that Mali stays on track and that this major international investment is not lost.
This investment is strategic, humanitarian, but also economic. You see, there are mining opportunities in Mali, so Canadian mining companies have also invested more than $1 billion in the country. And while Adrienne and her team were in Gao, they snapped some terrific pictures of the Canadian advance team as it landed. You can find them on our Instagram page at CBC The National.